Hello everyone and welcome to another Tempo Strategy Wild Hearthstone video. We're halfway through the Ashes of Outland expansion cycle, and the Wild meta has seen some huge shakeups throughout, but just as things are starting to settle down, a new challenger approaches. Big Shaman is here, and thanks to some powerful new cards from Ashes of Outland, as well as some classic powerhouse minions and Shaman summoning spells, it's one of the hottest new decks on the Wild ladder. Whether you want to pick it up and try something new, or you want to be prepared when you play against it, you definitely want to keep this deck on your radar. So let's take a closer look at how the deck works, how to mulligan, and how to play the deck against its best and worst matchups. Before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the Tempo Storm Strategy YouTube channel and to turn notifications on to stay up to date with our Wild Hearthstone content. Now let's begin. Big Shaman is a combo control deck that aims to play some of Hearthstone's largest minions by using Ancestor's Call, Eureka, and Muckmorpher to summon them for a steeply discounted mana cost. If these behemoths hit play in the early turns, they're very difficult to deal with, and you can make them even more resilient by playing Ancestral Spirit and Vivid Spores to have them come back from the dead even if your opponent finds an answer. In the turns before you land your big threats, you'll keep the opponent's board under control with removal spells like Maelstrom Portal, Serpent Shrine Portal, Torrent, and Hagatha's Scheme, while protecting your health with Healing Rain and Walking Fountain. Once Big Shaman's threats are established, you can end the game very quickly, which gives it the potential to win any matchup. Big Shaman is a deck that relies heavily on specific card combos in order to operate, so the mulligan phase is crucial to sculpting a winning hand. If your hand has too many large threats and no combo enablers, or all combo enablers but no minions, you'll be forced to play passively and risk being overrun. The ideal hand for any matchup will include at least one combo piece, one minion, and one piece of early interaction. Ancestor's Call, Eureka, and Muckmorpher are your primary enablers that you should almost always keep. If you already have Ancestor's Call or Eureka, you can keep one of your large minions as well, but you should never keep a large minion if you don't have an enabler. You'll also almost always keep Far Sight, since it gives you a card to play in the early turns that can reduce the mana cost of essential cards later down the line. Against aggressive classes such as Warrior, Demon Hunter, Rogue, and Paladin, you'll also want to keep some removal, such as Maelstrom Portal, Devolve, Serpent Shrine Portal, or Hagatha's Scheme, but don't full keep a hand that only contains removal. You want to get your threats online as soon as possible, so send redundant removal back to increase your odds of finding one of your enablers. Against control and combo classes such as Mage and Priest, you want to disregard removal completely and aggressively mulligan for Muckmorpher, Ancestor's Call, Eureka, and Far Sight. The remaining classes of Druid, Warlock, Hunter, and Shaman are more ambiguous in their archetypes, so when in doubt, look for key enablers and keep Far Sight and Hagatha's Scheme as well. The deck's most crucial turns are generally turns 4 through 6, when you'll be trying to establish your threats and reclaim the board against aggression. If you followed our mulligan guide and have enough luck, you'll either have a big threat with Ancestor's Call or Eureka, or you'll have Muckmorpher, or both. If you have a minion with Ancestor's Call on 4 or Eureka on 6, you generally want to play those cards right then and there. If you have Muckmorpher and Ancestor's Call together, you generally want to skip the Ancestor's Call on 4 in order to play the Muckmorpher on 5 first, so that you don't pull Muckmorpher with Ancestor's Call and lose the game on the spot. If you have both Ancestor's Call and Eureka, and you're playing against a slower matchup, you might want to consider playing Eureka before Ancestor's Call, unless you have multiple big minions already in hand. This allows you to generate extra threats, since Eureka creates a copy of the minion without taking it out of your hand, and it also allows you to pair Ancestor's Call with an Ancestral Spirit or Vivid Spores on a later turn. In the turns prior to the combo, your goal is to manage the board with your removal spells and stay alive. Most of your removal options are pretty straightforward to use, but Serpent Shrine Portal deserves special mention. It can clear a minion while generating a random one of your own, but be cognizant of its overload cost. If playing Serpent Shrine Portal on 3 means you'll miss playing Ancestor's Call on 4, look for a better play. Farsight is another early play that deserves special mention. In a deck like Big Shaman, Farsight's mana reduction is powerful and can help you set up some back-breaking plays. Drawing a 2-cost Muckmorpher, 3-cost Eureka, or 5-cost Walking Fountain helps you establish control of the board quickly, and drawing 0-mana Ancestral Spirit or 1-mana Vivid Spores lets you set up protection for your threats on the same turn that you play them. In the turns after your behemoths hit the board, continue to back them up with Ancestral Spirit and Vivid Spores, and use your removal and Healing Rain to keep your health total out of your opponent's reach. If the game goes long, you may have to pay your minions for their full mana costs, but don't get discouraged. Every minion in your deck is a must-answer threat, so keep slamming them to the board and your opponent will eventually crumble under the pressure. As far as matchups go, Big Shaman has what it takes to go toe-to-toe against many of the best decks in the format. Your best best matchups are against aggro decks like Pirate Warrior, Odd Demon Hunter, and Discard Warlock. All of your removal cards are relevant, and with your ability to cheat out Scrapyard Colossus and Walking Fountain to protect your face, you have all the tools you need to lock down the board and overwhelm the opponent. Opposing combo decks like Mechathune Warlock, Togwaggle Druid, and Tempo Quest Mage are fine matchups, but require more finesse. Against these decks, you want to establish your threats quickly and insulate them from removal with Ancestral Spirit and Vivid Spores. Ancestor's Call also doubles as disruption against combo decks, since it can pull key minions from your opponent's hand, and in some cases snipe their win condition and win the game outright. The most difficult matchups are Reno Priest, Reno Mage, and other control decks. Decks with transformation removal, silence effects, and efficient board clears can neutralize your threats, so you need to play smart. If you can play Ancestor's Call early into Yashiraj or a Colossus, don't hesitate to do so, but with your other combos, you'll often want to wait until you can back them up with your revival cards. At the same time, you'll have to be careful not to overinvest into a board that falls to cards like Psychic Scream, Poison Seeds, and the Amazing Reno. It's a fine line to walk, but if you anticipate your opponent's options, you can determine when to be patient and when to commit. One last matchup to consider is the Big Shaman Mirror. It's one of the few matchups where Ancestor's Call on 4 is a liability, since you run the risk of pulling a big minion for your opponent. Typically, the first player to establish a board in the Big Shaman Mirror wins, but be cognizant of Devolve and Hagatha's scheme, which can swing the game if you overcommit. Overall, Big Shaman has reasonable odds against most decks, and even against bad matchups like Reno Priest, you always steal the game with an early Ancestor's Call, which makes Big Shaman a force to be reckoned with. We're sure to see more of Big Shaman as the Ashes of Outland meta moves forward, so whether you're playing with the deck or playing against it, keep these guidelines in mind so you can be prepared on the wild ladder. If you enjoyed this spotlight, let us know in the comments which decks you'd like us to feature next. And as always, be sure to subscribe to the Tempo Strategy YouTube channel and to turn notifications on in order to stay current with our Wild Hearthstone content. Thanks for watching!